A very good afternoon to each one of you present here today. It has been a wonderful day so far with a wide range of insights around various different aspects of diversity and inclusion. A big shout out to the Avatar team for bringing us together again and driving these valuable conversations. We at HP are proud to be associated with Avatar once again in this esteemed conference. This conference is all about the power of I. As we deliberated, what does I stand for? It clearly stands for individual and inclusion. Both these words are a perfect segue for us discussion today on the topic Be-You-tiful, living with intersectional aspects of our identities. To join me in conversation to discuss this very interesting topic, I am excited to have with me our two esteemed panelists. My first panelist for the day is Harish. Harish is the head Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Axis Bank, is one of the most vocal proponents of the decriminalization of homosexuality in India. Harish has engaged in several awareness campaigns and the impact of the decision. Harish has written articles and letters on the subject and appeared on top national television news to highlight the plight of LGBTQ community in India. That finally led to the decriminalization of homosexuality in 2018. My next panelist for the day is Ketty Avashia. Ketty is the Platform Integration India lead at Wells Fargo, who manages a diverse team, a passionate D&I advocate, a humanitarian, and one who confidently embraces all the different aspects of identities equally. Thank you both for joining us today. So just before we speak about the various aspects of intersectionality, I want to take a moment to reflect. What does intersectionality really mean? I'm aware that we don't use this word as often as diversity, equity, and inclusion. Intersectionality was a concept coined by Kimberly Crenshaw almost 30 years back. In simple words, it just means intersecting aspects or multiple layers of one's identity. It includes multiple facets of a person from a region, religion, age, education, sexual preferences, sexual orientations, physical capabilities, income, and many more such aspects. So how does this relate to us at workplace? Some examples of employees could be a millennial girl going on maternity leave, a trans person with disability, lesbian or gay Gen X leader, a woman from a religious minority group, or a PWD queer person, and the list can go on. More and more people today are slowly opening up in acceptance of their multiple identities, and we as organizations have to build for this level of inclusion. With that context, I'm going to dive straight into my first set of questions for our panelists today. Harish and Ketty, how would you introduce yourself in the context of intersectionality? And we can start with you, Harish. Over to you.
I'm Harish. I'm a gender fluid person. I am 42 years of age, so that's another aspect of me. I'm an atheist, but the religion that my family follows is Hinduism, so that's another aspect of me. So I think that intersectionality for me, Jay, is about all these different aspects intermingling with each other. So I can never divorce one aspect of my life and just embrace the other aspect, because when people accept me, they need to accept me as a whole. So they can't really say that, you know what, I accept the fact that you're gay, but I'm not going to accept the fact that you're gender fluid, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
You can't, so because if you're showing discrimination or non-acceptance in one form to a person and you're just accepting one aspect of the person, you're still not accepting the person, because the person is not just one aspect, the person is a amalgamation of many things. Yeah, so absolutely. That's how I define myself.
Thank you. Thanks, Harish. Ketty, over to you. How would you introduce yourself?
Hi, Jay. Thank you. And as far as I am concerned, I'm Ketty Avashia, born in Gujarat. So Gujarati is one part of my identity. Another is an IT professional. Third is a more associated global citizen. Fourth would be that I am a transgender by identification, a constant learner and reader. This is how I think I would describe myself.
Thanks, Gary and Harish. Thank you both for introducing your whole selves and setting the perfect context to start this session today. I'm going to dive into my first question, and Harish, I'm going to point this to you. How does intersecting aspects of our identities actually shape our perspectives about how we look at our workforce in today's world?
Very, very, very important question. And thank you, Jay, for asking that question. I think one of the most important aspects in when we are designing our workforce is the kind of ideas that come in, because each and every struggle that each and every community, each and every intersectional aspect of yourself goes through brings in some special talents, some special coping mechanisms which will be an asset to the workforce. So when you actually get in somebody who has gone through years of discrimination, or because of that person's identity, the person has already developed a lot of coping mechanisms. So as a talent force, I think
Right.
it becomes incredibly important to have diverse people, to have a diverse workforce with all these intersectional aspects skewed in, because then what really happens is the kind of results, you have diverse solutions, you have diverse thoughts, you have diverse problem solving skills, you know, and you have a robust energy every time at workforce in at your workplace,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you really have so many people with their whole selves. Which what I mean by whole selves is all the intersectional cells coming together. I think that's how I
Absolutely.
think it impacts the workforce today.
And I agree with you. The ball of energy that can transform and drive the actual business impact of having that many people of different shades coming together is absolutely a win-win situation for the organization. And thanks for answering that. Katie, I'm going to come to you. What can one do to own and express their multiple aspects? And how can companies actually make room to accept people as their whole self?
Good moment, because I've completely accepted myself and I express freely, I can reflect back to the journey that I've gone through. Actually speaking, when a queer person gets to know that there is something different and may have the avenue of understanding themselves, or they may not have the avenue,
Right.
at that point in time, this particular question plays a very huge role, because that is the time when you are finding out things about yourself which you have yourself not accepted, and you are in a struggle of whether should I or should I not, am I wrong or am I right? So first thing is, as I would hope that everybody is able to realize the fact that each one of us is unique, each one of us need to love ourselves, and each one of us brings something to the table, right? That is the first part. Embrace your identity. As far as the expression is concerned, depending upon your own comfort, whether a person could be introvert, extrovert, less talkative, more talkative, right? So, depending upon your own comfort, whenever you express yourself, as long as you are authentic, I think people will be able to relate to you. And as far as the subject, when we go to the professional environment is concerned, when you are true to the subject matter that you are working on, again people will value your opinions and they will accept you. And at that point in time, your queerness is not what is going to be a subject of their focus, because if they are a neutral crowd, then they will focus on the skills part.
Absolutely. And I'm going to feed a little more into that response and cue into my next question, which is for both of you. At an individual level, give us an example of how experience of being accepted, because there are situations where you're accepted and there are situations where you're not accepted for who you are, for being the multiple shades of you. Give us examples of a situation like that, and what were your key takeaways from those experiences? Kerry, we can start with you.
Sure. So, being accepted is thrilling, to be very honest, because
Right.
during the growing years, we had self rejection as well as people rejection. So, there was a lot of trauma associated and confusion associated to the growing years. But as on today, if you are accepted, that is first of all thrilling and it's a happy experience. If you are not accepted, uh, it is done in microaggression format and it is done in silos. So if you get to know about them and if you face those kind of situations, I would choose the battle that I would want to fight. Whether it is worth or not is my first question to myself. And my second question is, if it is worth, then it should be big, it should be loud.
Absolutely. Harish, any personal experiences that you would like to highlight on the acceptance or non-acceptance part of it?
I think one of the biggest parts of acceptance was, when I joined Axis Bank, I just spent 1 week in the bank, and because I knew these bankers would go dressed in, in a triple blazer kind of a thing. So I went dressed. I went and shopped for it. I got the most sexiest blazer available, and I went to work. And the head of HR called me to the room. Her name is Rajkamal Vempati. She called me to the room and she looked at me and she was furious. She said she was angry, and she was looking at me, and she just said that, I don't know why you're dressed like this, and your reflex action is that you'll see whether you've spilled something on your suit, or is your fly on. And I was trying to do all those things. And she just looked at me and she said, Harish, we have hired you not to fit in. Stand out, be who you are. And of course, we changed the dress code policy. We upgraded the dress code policy and made it possible for everyone, who to dress according to their gender identity. So after that, I have always gone wearing what I am, rather than wearing what people would want me to wear. People would assume that I should be wearing. I think that's a sign of acceptance. And I think you need to be intentional with your acceptance. It doesn't just by changing a policy, you can upgrade all your policies and you can have the best of policies. But unless and until you have people who are intentional about diversity, equity, and inclusion, there is no change that's possible. You need to be intentional, and it needs to be driven from the top. I'm fortunate that it's driven from the top, but I wish more and more organizations would do the same.
Absolutely. I think one of the favorite words is intentional from that answer, because I think it's really, really important for us all to, as individuals, be intentional about opening up for everybody to come in, and that leads to so many different aspects of growth and winning in a organization. So thanks for that example. I think it was really, really well resonated. Harish, I'm going to pin this next question towards you to say, we are moving forward in a very silos, diversity, equity, inclusion kind of a culture. We're used to that. We are kind of moving forward with that as a DE&I strategy. But we slowly see acceptance of intersectionality seems to be actually the center of it. And that's the only way forward, to be actually inclusive in this whole strategy. What are your thoughts on how companies can actually embed this as a part of the everything that we do in the D&I space? How do we embed this into the strategy that we drive?
First of all, it's incredibly important to understand that this is not an HR agenda. This has to be a business imperative. Okay. One of the things that people need to understand is that whether it's HP or whether it's Wells Fargo or whether it's Axis Bank, or whether it's any company for that matter, I think our customer base is changing. They are evolving. So when you're speaking to a customer, you're not speaking to one aspect of a customer. You're speaking to the whole of the customer. And our internal customers, who are our employees, need to also embrace the same kind of values and ethos that is reflected outside. So it's a reflection for any company to progress in terms of finances or its human capital. I think it's incredibly important that we focus on this aspect, on the aspect of intersectionality. And intersectionality is the overlaying theme on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because these don't exist. If you ask me which one we need to start first, you need to do all three together.
Yeah.
And the most important aspect in all three, the common ingredient in all three, is going to be intersectionality. Like, for instance, if you'd say that queer people can come to office because we are very everything over here is very rainbow, okay, but you're going to stop some person, but you really don't know how a person is going to reach the second floor, because that person is a person with this physical disability. So the person might be queer and yet be a person with physical disability. So unless and until you accept the whole of people, there is no partial acceptance of people's traits. You either accept the whole of a person or you don't. You're either inclusive or you're not. You're either intersectional or you're not. There is no gray area over here at all. So there's no challenge, because if you're either intersectional or you're not, there are no gray areas over there.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. It kind of ignites a thought from a HP context, because we started with a pillar, for different work streams to kind of bring the whole D&I agenda together. And as we were going and growing in that journey of ours, and how we actually looking at sensitization becomes an extremely important component for us. And we spend a lot of time and energy in sensitizing individuals to the last layer of the organization. To be able to understand what these things mean is your start point to a journey for acceptance, right? So we have running initiatives like, we for example, we have a group community of working mothers, and we do a lot of initiatives for them. We have Pride people coming and speaking to them how to sensitize children you're raising as parents. You need to know about the queer community and the Pride community. So there's a cross-functional referencing that is happening at this point in time. And like millennials, how do we connect them to the senior leaders of the organization, and how do they come together and exchange and learn and grow together is one of the things that we are doing as well.
So I wanted to come in. There's when we are doing a program, so to say, many. It's also important to be intentional, and we get all kinds of cross sections. I have a small example to share. I was attending this conference, and I was giving a talk on LGBT rights. The principal of the college was there. Everyone was very progressive, very accepting. And this was pre-section 377, so it was even more. There was even more. Very few colleges actually took this step. So the principal was giving a talk, and we had one of our teammates who was a trans person who had not arrived at the venue, and her phone was also switched off. So we kept worrying about it while we were on stage, and she walked in like 20 minutes late when we were going to end the event. And when we looked at her, and her name is Urmi, so we asked Urmi, ki Urmi, tumhe der kahan ho gaya? Where were you late? And she said the security person didn't allow me in, because he told me that that people like you aren't allowed inside the college. So the whole thing is you were sensitizing people, but sensitizing a part of your organization doesn't help. That's something that's also important.
Has to be done
so to do it right to the security people, to the facilities people, everybody,
Yeah.
So
I completely agree with you. I think that is the effort of, kind of spanning out from the start to the end and continue that journey of sensitization. I agree. Katie, I'm going to come to you. What do you think are the implications of overlooking or neglecting intersecting aspects of identity of employees that we have in our organizations today from, say, a marginalized or minority groups? Any thoughts?
One is that you're going to demotivate them from embracing their identity for sure. Another is going to be that globally, this is a particular pillar that is gaining a lot of importance. And if you anywhere, any part of the world, if you are not at par with it, then your customers are going to judge you. Right. It is going to be very important. So if I am one of the customers, and if your bank is not dealing with the LGBTQ community, and I myself represent that particular community, I am going to put a question mark. Do I want to deal with this bank, or do I want to go somewhere else? Right? So respect the wholesomeness of a community as well as a person is the key thing over here. Now, another major issue that will happen is that you will lose out on the equity of thoughts. Right. Because intersectionality plus diversity, the way you want to put it, is the key reason why you get different thoughts, sometimes controversial, sometimes chiming together, but you get different experiences coming together, giving their opinions, and coming out in a fashion such that a holistic solution is going to be created. Now, if you don't motivate that kind of an environment, then you are at a loss of certain point of views also. All in all, there must have been multiple statistical analysis around this, but I feel that it's a lose-lose situation if you do not start embracing all aspects of everybody. Now, it I am not limiting my examples to just the LGBTQ plus community. I am also stating about people who have grown in different locations. When they come together, they have different ways of thinking. People who have studied in this different type of schooling education bodies, they have different thinking process also. So all in all, it is the acceptance of a thought process without judging it as better and worst.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Harish and Getty, just together, another question I wanted to ask you all is, there are a lot of people in the audience who are leading teams of various kinds. They're managers who are managing large teams, small teams, multidimensional teams. How could they actually broaden inclusion as leaders of the future to ensure every employee at some point can bring in their whole self to work? And how do we start that process? And what's one piece of advice would you give from your experiences as leaders and people who believe in intersectionality and inclusion? Katie, we can go with you.
Sure. So, as far as a manager is concerned, very important link between the organization and the employee. If the manager is educated, self-educated, a strong ally, a person who checks, self-checks, and corrects his or her own biases, right?
Right.
Then that is the kind of manager who can become an example for the employees and an asset for the company, right? What are we exactly trying to gain over here? What we are trying to gain somebody's confidence to be themselves, right? And how does that happen? One-on-one interactions, being visibly and vocally supportive for people who feel marginalized. I'm saying people who feel marginalized because even an introvert person feels marginalized in a corporate environment. So, if you have identified that someone is feeling left out or out of place, you should be the one who goes out and makes an attempt to have that one-on-one conversation and bring some changes in the environment, knowingly or unknowingly, for others that are going to support that person to feel comfortable. Make something more transparent, more comfortable, more opinionated, and less judgmental. That is how a manager can create a very good, wholesome, and symbiotic environment.
Right, absolutely. Harish, any thoughts on this question? One piece of advice to all the leaders and managers on the call to build inclusion?
We have the statement, Jay, that we use in Axis Bank, and I've been using this for years together now. It says, it goes like this: the onus of inclusion lies on those who are included, not on those who are excluded. So the ones who are included, as long as they stretch their hands and ensure and assume responsibility to extend inclusion to everybody, that's when we will see real change. You can't expect the ones who are excluded to constantly fight to get included. Ki mujhe team mein le lo, mujhe team mein le lo. That is not going to happen. The ones who are included need to extend their arms, their hearts to include those who are excluded.
Absolutely. That's a very powerful statement, and that will be my takeaway from this session as well. With that, I'm afraid it's time to wrap this very engaging discussion. I once again want to thank Team Avatar for its association with HP and for this great opportunity to be a part of this session. Harish, Ketty, it was amazing interacting with you and hearing your authentic selves. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I hope we continue to have more of these conversations in the future to drive the real impact of inclusion today and every day. With that, we have some time for audience questions, and you may put them in the chat box and we will take it from there. Once again, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for all of those wonderful insights, Jay, Harish, and Ketty. Thank you so much for sharing your lived experiences. This session is sponsored by HP Inc. And now we have some questions. So here goes our first question. Our first question is, what are some of the issues that have been historically left out of the discussions related to intersectional identities? And we would like to hear perspectives from all three of you. Harish, would you like to go first, please?
I think, thank you for the question. And intersectionality is not being spoken about. It's we were intersectional beings right from the beginning, but the conversation about intersectionality has just begun. What gets left out? I think we often don't speak about the intersections of caste. We don't speak about the intersections of we don't speak about disability. We look at people as a monolith. If we say queer, we don't see that the queer person could be disabled, could also be economically marginalized, could also be a person with disability. So there are and could also belong to a to a community which is historically marginalized, right? So, and the more layers of intersectionality you add to a person, the more difficult, the more layers that you need to peel to build equity, you know. So I think that's one aspect that has just gained prominence in the past few decades, though it was existent since long. I mean, we were never monolithic creatures, we were always a subsect of many things. But I think the conversation has just begun very recently.
Thank you, Harish. Jay, your perspectives on this.
Yeah, I'm going to take a lead with what Harish just mentioned. The conversation has just begun. And when I was researching on this topic and trying to understand a little more, I just realized that acceptance for yourself is the number one. I think we have not tuned in to taking time to reflect on intersectional aspects of ourselves first. Only then the dialogue or the engagement, the conversation goes to accepting everybody around me. So how many of us would stop and say, okay, what are the different facets about me? Or take a moment to accept yourselves to be able to bring everybody else in, right? So that's an interesting start of a conversation, like Harish said as well. It's something that's starting off, and I'm hopeful that conversations like these, sessions like these, help us build more awareness and sensitization of bringing your whole self into work, into personal lives, into the communities, everywhere.
Thank you, JKT. Your perspectives on this question.
So, in line with what Harish and Jay said, basically, all of us, as we grow up, we are we are make up in such a way that we go towards rights and wrongs. There are definitions. We follow those definitions, and then there is time when we grow up and we start realizing that there are certain things that we do not want to fit in, or we feel very awkward with, and things like that. Now, back in the days, it seems that the rights have been nurtured, the wrongs have been suppressed, and that is the reason intersectionality was not even identified within oneself. As we started observing people, as we started talking about mental health, as we started talking about a lot of aspects of a person, that's when intersectionality became very clear. That because of so and so environment, so and so experience, so and so thought process, this person is thinking in certain fashion. So I would not blame anybody for not giving it enough notice, but now that it is something that we are talking about, I think it is worth encouraging every dialogue on this particular aspect.
Thank you, Ketty. So we have another question from Vasudha Podar. Her question is, do you feel work from home has brought marginalized communities into the closet once again? So Jay, your thoughts on this particular question related to work from home, whether it has brought marginalized communities in the closet?
In my opinion, yes, because I think this is like they say, this is the biggest work experiment the globe would have seen. Something that we never thought was possible is possible right now. So it actually is bringing everybody in the digital platforms, and it's highly engaging to see, inspiring to see how we have lesser restrictions today to say we can't bring this person in. The minorities, all intersectional aspects of people, right? We have a place for everyone in the digital platforms and into the digital age today. So I think yes, my response would be yes, definitely.
Harish, your thoughts?
So your question was, are marginalized communities?
Do you feel
What was
work
it?
from home has brought marginalized communities in the closet from a
In the
pandemic
closet?
context? Yeah.
In the closet? You mean to say
Yes.
inside the closet?
Closet.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was.
No. So I thought I yeah, she heard it otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard
Okay.
it otherwise. Yeah.
I tend to agree because many of the communities, I mean, in the sense that I have a difference of opinion from what Jay was saying, is the especially LGBT communities for that matter. You've seen more women dropping out during the pandemic, during the work from home regime. I've seen that not just in the company that I am in, but also that's the conversation that we're hearing, because the burden, we'll still live in a very patriarchal world, right? So let's even before we get to different marginalized communities, let's just speak about women. We live in a patriarchal world. The world has not changed because of the pandemic. The mindsets have not changed because of the pandemic. And there are still, it should not be a norm, but still women doubling up as doing household work and doing work in office. And now when both of it is put in the same in the same workstation, I think when your work home and your home becomes the same, the challenge also accentuates. It becomes double. Even for people in the LGBT communities, for that matter, especially people who want an escape from home. You might have an office which is very accepting of you. You want an escape from home where you can go to office and be yourself. At least in Axis Bank, we have a dress code policy. You have policies which actually make it possible for people who can be themselves at work. Now, when you're stuck at home, and home is not the safest place for many people, right? And when you're stuck at home and you have nowhere to escape, and you're working also from home, all this adds up, and it adds to the trouble. So I don't the work from home is romanticized, and it's really good in many aspects. I don't think uh, you know I'm a I don't think it's fostering equality in the true sense of the word in many ways.
Thank you. Thank you, Harish. Getting your perspectives related to this particular question.
So, the way I see COVID has brought very strange dynamics. When I think about the LGBTQ set of folks that I'm aware of, quite a lot of them have been forced to stay within the household, which means their expression has either been challenged, or they have found, if they are living alone or if they are living with their partners, they have found supreme amount of freedom to express themselves from within the doors. So the for me it is a 50-50 scenario where the closet has opened also, and in some cases it has closed also. Now where it has closed, it is a bigger challenge, and the challenge would come from their surrounding, their folks, and those who look up to them to be otherwise and not themselves, you know.
All right.
I,
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
echo what Harish and Kelly is saying. Sorry, I heard the word as close set rather than closet. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jay, Harish, and Katie. We have next question from Jitesh Ramchantani. His question is, How do you make it safe for employees to disclose their sexual orientation at the workplace? How do you build the safety checkpoint during the onboarding process itself? Kitty, I would like to hear your perspectives first on this before I move to Harish and Jay, please.
Sure. So, as far as the workplace is concerned, constant emphasis on inclusivity, awareness related sessions, closed door sessions, mentoring sessions, top down approach, these things are very necessary. While the policies and all of those things are already being worked upon in parallel, and they are becoming more and more supportive, friendlier for the community. I believe that there is a lot that the community also needs to do. Once they are in the organization, they need to find the right forum, they need to find the comfort in their own skin, and they need to be visible and vocal. So, it is only an ally can only help somebody who they know is the member of a community, right? Until and unless you are known, until and unless you are asking for help, nobody will be able to help. So if this person, whoever has asked the question, is asking about a person who has come out in office space, I believe it is already a safe space in most of the organizations. uh, and if it is not, then the person has got the platform to speak to the top management and kind of supportively educate them that these are the things that can be corrected. I think to expect that everything is going to be hunky dory is too much, but to support and to be a part of the change is what is required.
Thank you, Kitty. Harish, over to you.
To add to Ketty, I mean, Ketty touched on a very important aspect. And just to add to Ketty, I think, America had this, US had the policy in the military, which was called don't ask, don't tell, right? And we thought that if you don't tell anyone that you are belonging to the LGBT, you belong to the LGBT community, that means that you are all safe. Everyone is safe. The truth is that that's the most inhibiting thing. You need to create enabling environments so that you can tell, and you will be respected after you have told. And the most important aspect in this becomes the policy. But policy is what? Policy is like a law, like the law in our country. You might have many laws, but the lawbreakers will keep breaking the law, right? So what you have to do is you have to add a deterrent so that lawbreakers don't break the law. And how do you, and what is it in this context? In this context, it's regular training, reinforcing, reinforcing again and again in every aspect, being mindful about, because mostly LGBT, PWD people, all other aspects sometimes get neglected from in various conversations, simply because we don't make up a massive percentage. Like for instance, women. You disclose the number of women in the organization in a percentage scale. You'll say that we have got 40% women, you have got 30% women. um, in my organization, if I was to speak about how many people are out, and if there are 5 people who are out, how much percentage does that make up when it comes to 85,000, 90,000 people, right? So that comes out to a very small, infinitely small number of people. But mention this. If there are 5 people, mention that you have got 5. You in your diversity percentage, you have got what, 25% women, and you have got 5 LGBT people. Mention those, count them as a number, so that you will automatically have mechanisms to insert. And there are LGBTQ people. It's just that they have not found the organization safe to come out and speak, right? There are LGBTQ people everywhere. If you go to Antarctica, you might find a gay Eskimo also, right? So you'll find queer people everywhere. So just that they haven't not found it safe to speak. And your organization, every organization should aspire to become a space where LGBT people can come out in this thing. Will there be homophobia? Yes, there be transphobia, will there be queer phobia? Yes, there will be. What the evils that exist in the society will exist over there also, will exist over here also. Just as the world doesn't become safe, suddenly become safe for women because you have a posh committee, right? You still have posh complaints that come in. That doesn't mean that you start telling, okay, tomorrow every gender is going to act masculine because that's the only way that everything could be safe. That's not the way we look at things, right? So the same thing needs to be extended to various different communities, not just LGBTQ.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Harish. Jay, your thoughts.
I'm quickly just going to add an additional layer to what Ketty and Hari said, right? On ground, in terms of what I see is there's an inner layer and there's an outer layer, right? The inner layer is your managers slash leaders, people who have or can become influencers of creating that a safe space because they have many people that they can actually influence. And first of all, think about how important it is to create a safe space, be it for women, be it for LGBTQ, be it for people with disability of any kind, right? So I feel like managers could play a huge role in thinking of the importance of creating that safe space. First of all, the thought. And once you have that thought, you then comes all your policies, processes, your work stream drivers, everything. But as leaders, if we change the mindset, move to a growth mindset to say, yes, I need to create a safe space for everybody who works under me. I think that's the start point to a larger engagement to create safe space.
Thank you, Jay. So my next question is again to you. In fact, I would be seeking responses from all of you. But first, your thoughts, Jay, on what are the power dynamics at play at the workplaces that prevent people from expressing themselves fully, and how can these be addressed?
Power dynamics at workspace, is that the question?
Yes, yes. What are the power dynamics at play at the workplaces that prevent people from expressing themselves fully, and how can we address them?
The first thing that comes to my mind is trust, right? I trust my peers. I trust my managers. I trust my leaders. I trust my management. I trust the people in the organization, which results to I trust the organization to bring myself as a whole person, as who I am into the organization. I think that's the start point for me. So I would say trust.
Thank you, Jay. Katie, over to you.
So, power, it has always existed. It brings strategy, it brings politics, it brings every sort of things, and nobody can deny. Now, as far as the LGBTQ community is concerned, right now is the best time. Reason being, after 377 has been struck down, even the power is along with you. Even the smallest person is being looked at. There is hope associated, and there are people who verbally want to come out in front and help, right? So as of this moment, I believe power is your friend, not your enemy anymore. It used to be, and we cannot deny that, but today it is not your enemy. As far as the corporate culture is concerned, there are very strict code of conducts, and I have personally experienced that the senior leadership understands the need of having inclusivity in India in order to not only equate with the global culture and the overall economic affair, also because in India that becomes a questionable ratio if not addressed correctly. So, as of this moment, as I said, power is your friend.
Thank you, Katie. Harish, your thoughts.
I think humility is the word. I think if you have humility, leadership needs to have humility. They are not the know all, done all people. They might or might not have the experience, right? If somebody talks down on people because and acts as if they know, like a man coming and speaking, I know everything about women, right? And I'm going to opine on it all the time. Okay. There are umpteen examples of mansplaining that happen quite often. There are a lot of queers, mansplaining on queerdom also that happens quite often, where they know about everything. A very small incident. Just yesterday, I was speaking to my executive director, and he's like 4 5 levels above me, and we all have the habit of saying guys every time. So while he was doing this, and I come from the activism background, I just sent him a message saying, can we use people instead of guys, because there are guys and girls, everyone in this organization. So can you please make an attempt? He didn't see that message, and I was like, okay, he probably didn't respond to it. In the night, I get a long message from him saying that, oh, I'm so sorry, I will thank you for letting me know. For the next time, I'm going to be careful. And he had tweeted something where somebody had said wonderful guys on something, and he corrected that person and said wonderful people. So it was a small thing, but to have the humility to do that, to be humane at the core, and to not say that because of my position, I'm going to throw this attitude and believe that I know everything. I think the more you get on the top, the more divorce you get from the other levels also. And if you build an attitude of gratitude at that point and humility at that point, I think that becomes the most important thing that senior management needs to have.
Thank you, Harish. We have next question from Jitesh Ramchandani again, and his question is: what do you think about companies offering medical cover to LGBTQ partners? How do we make this a common practice? Now, I think what we also need to remember in mind is the fact that the same-sex marriage is still not legal in India. I think. So, your perspectives on this, Harish, first, and then we will go to Jay and Kitty.
Okay. I work with Axis Bank, and in Axis Bank, you have same-sex partner benefits. In fact, we don't have same-sex partner benefits, we have partner benefits. So you could be in a live-in relation with your partner, and you could be a heterosexual partner, a homosexual partner, as long as you have the same address. You can join in and list your partner, and your bargaining power is much more. I mean, LGBTQ people are, we are not a minuscule minority. Definitely, what the Supreme Court had said for the first time, we are not a minuscule minority, but we are definitely, the number of people who are out are a small number of people. Your bargaining power, whether it's HP, whether it's Wells Fargo, whether it's Axis Bank, when you have employees more than 50,000, 80,000 people all across the nation, your bargaining power or any other organization, it becomes, bargaining power becomes much easier, right? So speaking to insurance companies and to tell them that, you know what, you're doing all this, so can we also have these two things included? And it's an uphill battle where you have to discuss with them. And this happened way before 377, a little before 377, I believe, when we had started. It's not that they didn't wait for a gay man to come and say, I'm gay, please can you have these things for me? I think it has to be intentional, and it has to happen with intent. And it's what, you're just extending same sex, you're extending insurance benefit to the person, right? So for that, you don't need any marriage certificate for that. You could also be, just as you extend it to your mother, father, in-laws, you can also extend it over there. I think it's a little bit of bargain that you need to do with insurance companies, but it's worth the try, especially when you have the bargaining power.
Thank you, Harish. Jay, over to you.
I think this is happening and it's going to continue to happen. So it's very progressive to see company like ours actually endorse this and make these things happen in reality. And it's going to continue to happen, right? This is what equity is about. Like we bring everybody on an equal platform and provide equal opportunities, benefits and everything. That's the actual power of inclusion.
Kitty, over to you.
So, both have already covered. It is a fact that it is happening, and it is going to continue to go to the next segment of companies also. So corporates are covered, those that find themselves to be decently large enough are also introducing. Now, maybe at the smaller companies or startups kind of scenarios, it may not have been introduced right now. But as soon as the insurance companies will realize that there is a lot of benefit in creating this win-win proposal, even the smaller companies will adapt to it. So, matter of time, but it'll happen for sure.
Thank you, thank you. So we have the next question from Abhijit Deshmukh, who says, we see efforts for percentage of women in terms of diversity targets in most of the organizations, but not with the LGBTQ community. What are your views on hindrance and how to bring this up?
Can I take
So
this
Katie,
first?
would you like to address this first?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
All right. So, Abhijit, let me tell you, this is my personal experience, and there
Katie, we're
are.
not able to hear you.
Are you able to hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So I can vouch for the fact that this is my personal experience. Companies do have LGBTQ pride related targets also. The problem is finding the right match, even if it is not 100% match, and companies are trying to get to a scenario where we have 60-70% of match and rest upskilling can be done on the job. Companies are ready to do these kind of things. Hiring managers have been sensitized in a lot of areas I know of. It is The problem is that who do you go and approach? There is very few hiring agencies for LGBTQ specific. There is very few people, even fewer people who want to be out. So even if you get hired, we would not know that you belong to the community. This is more of a problem where a handshake is required. As far as effort is concerned, it is present.
Thank you, Katie. Jay, over to you.
And I agree. I agree with Kerry. I think it's again comes to a start point. Women percentage has been discussed for decades and decades, right? So that process also started at some point. So now, as we talked about the LGBTQ community, we've made progress. Definitely made progress in the last few years, and the journey is going to continue. And it's all, again, it brings down to the point of bringing everybody in, right? So LGBTQ community is also a great amount of focus right now for most of the companies, and I hope we continue on that journey as well.
Thank you, Jay. Harish.
I um, I think the intent is there. Okay, intent is there. You at this moment we are speaking to three very progressive companies at this moment in this panel. So it all sounds very hunky dory because you'll get all progressive views. But I have 1 year in the society as well because I'm in my parallel avatar. I'm an activist as well. I see the conversation just trickling because what's happening is again people don't count them as numbers at all because it comes out to be a small percentage. What the Supreme Court in the first verdict had said, minuscule minority, that's the same mindset. Okay, that's the same mindset that many companies are having right now. It's a small percentage. How is it going to matter? But people need to know, first of all, just because we are invisible doesn't mean that we can be overcome. Like you can forget about us. We are invisible, but we are invincible also. So that's something that people need to remember. The other thing that people need to remember is that there are many people who come and say that we don't have LGBT couples. We don't have LGBT people. I'm like, honey, you don't know who are LGBT. There are LGBT people everywhere. There are LGBT people who are listening to this conversation right now, right? And that's not just Ketty and me. There are other people also who are listening to this right now, right? So there are many people who are listening to this, and they could be from the LGBT spectrum, right? It's another thing that organizations have to step up so that people feel comfortable to come out about their identities if they want to. So if people are not coming out, it's not the failure of the person. The onus of inclusion lies on those who are included, not on those who are excluded. So that responsibility lies on the company, not on the person, right? So the company has not expanded itself to a level, has not been so intentional to the level. I'll put the complete blame on the company, say that you haven't been in, your intent has not been strong enough for a queer person to come out and say that I belong here and I can open and speak about myself here, right? So think that I think that many companies are not intentional. You're speaking to the progressive lot here, and we are really a minuscule minority.